Turning 72 this year, Kathryne Imabayashi is not slowing down. She is speeding up, and by her own words, she is not entering the second half of life. She is in her third act. Kathy, you have had a lifetime as an early childhood educator and author and leader and coach. You're turning 72 soon, and yet you've said your mission is actually ramping up. I love that so much, by the way. Where does that incredible surge of energy and purpose come from at this time in your life?
There's three things actually that impact my drive. One of them is my son, and he has been the force behind everything that I've done, and he's also my biggest teacher. So he has just several months ago become a father for the first time to a little boy. So watching him navigate fatherhood and being able to support and guide him, that's one real strong push not to stop what I'm doing. The second is this brand new, beautiful little boy who is coming into the world. And because that's what I've looked at little boys' worlds for, more than 3 decades now. So thinking if I can have an impact on how he experiences those early years, that's a driving force for me. And then one of the other really big factors, not to just stop, like just to keep going, is a year ago, I switched up a little bit my podcast, and I started interviewing only young men and fathers. And for the 30 plus years that I have been trying to understand better the inner emotional world of boys and men, it was in this year, talking directly to young men, that it was kind of like, all right, this is what the secret sauce is. This is where, things can change. And so it's powerful how those things can motivate you to just keep doing your best, leave the world a little bit better than you came into it.
I'm with you. That's my mission. I want to leave it a better place. I get that. So, all right, you've been specializing in boys for so long, and now really with your podcast focusing on that. Holding your grandson, has it confirmed what you already knew, or what's it done different? Has it done anything different?
I had a couple of people ask me that question, and when I really gave it some thought, I mean, babies are magical anyway, whether they're a little girl or a little boy, and there's a purity and just a honest vulnerability that I don't think you see in any other part of life. So of course, him being in our world has an impact for sure. But the biggest thing for me was having the privilege of living close enough to my son to watch him navigate fatherhood and how he and his partner are becoming parents. And watching that is what kind of like, this is just, I don't know. It gives me such optimism for the future, for that little boy and for this next generation.
What led you to work with boys, specialize in boys in the first place? Was there a moment you thought, this is what I want to do? Like, I wanted to work with burned out women. Was there a moment that you went, this is it?
It's interesting that you say it that way. There was a moment, but it wasn't, I want to do it. It's like, oh shit, I have to do this. And it happened when our son was between 3 and 4, and I took him fishing on a Saturday. His dad was working. We went to a little creek that was a little bit out of the way. We're in Japan. I wasn't concerned about safety. Everything was beautiful, having a lovely time. And out of the corner of my eye, I saw what I labeled in my own head a gang of young boys coming down this shaded pathway to the creek where we were. And in that moment, My guttural reaction was total fear. And so the boys came down and they were simply, young adolescent boys, the same age group that I was teaching at that time. So of all people, I should have understood that, in this phase of development, their bodies are getting bigger, but they still have the hearts of little boys inside. So, and I didn't, I don't know why that feeling came there, because I had no history of that would have triggered that kind of response. I wasn't,
No trauma or
there was nothing there. So, and that day for the fishing, the boys came down. There were 5 or 6 of them. They hung out with my little guy. We just had a great time, and it was a beautiful afternoon. And that could have been the end of it. But I really am like a dog with a bone, and I need things to make sense, especially when they're about me. I need to understand myself so that I can be the best for other people who are connected with me. And after, our son went to bed, I just started thinking, like, why did I react that way? Where did that come from? And I dug and I dug and I dug, and I could not. There was nothing that made any sense whatsoever. And just as I was going to let it go, which I never let it go, but just as I was going to let it go, it was like, well, wait a minute. In 10 years or 15 years or 20 years, is there going to be another woman, another mom, who's going to see my little boy, however old he is, walking down that path, walking on the street, and being filled with fear simply because he is a male, not because of what he's doing, what he's saying, what he's wearing, only because he is a male. And I thought it just broke my heart to think that someone would think that about my son. And that's what started it. So one of the first books that I read trying to understand better was Dr. William Pollock's Real Boys. And that I learned so much in that first book, and that was the starting point for me. And at the end of the book, he said, if you learned something, if you got something out of this, then now it's your job to share it with as many people as you can so that we can make it better. And I guess I took that very seriously because I just kept going. Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll come to your book, Sonhood, in a moment. I'm curious because you do live in Japan. You have a Japanese husband. Culturally, the difference, if you had been somewhere else in the world, seeing a group of half a dozen teenage boys coming towards you, without that, and you still got triggered by it in a country that's deemed so safe like Japan. Is there a difference in how young boys show up in Japan versus, say, the Western world?
How they show up or how we react to them.
Okay.
If I was home, if I was in Canada, and first of all, I don't think I would have put myself in that position. But I'm always in Canada. I was always thinking, or what created fear in me was seeing young people or anybody not being able to be responsible because they were either influenced by drugs or alcohol or something else, and that was the norm, like drugs are the norm in North America. So I think my reaction would have been different there. When I was here, that wasn't in my mind frame.
Isn't that crazy?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I've got a 26-year-old boy. I've gone through the having the boys as well, and he's Thai, but he was still went through his teenage years around 16, and you get a group of them together. Even our local area, electric bikes are the thing now, and if I see even 3 or 4 of them with teens on them, I feel totally intimidated by them. Yeah. I won't say scared, but intimidated. Bloody oath. Yeah, it's big.
It is big, and there are so many things that if there was more of an awareness on both parts, on our adult side, or as parents, but also for the boys themselves to be able to understand better about what's happening, why are they the way they are, why are they treated this way in society. And you look at a young boy who's going through adolescence, who doesn't have the benefit of things like rites of passage or the village to help support and understand all of that.
Yeah.
It's a really challenging time for them.
I agree. For rites of passage for boys and girls and women going through midlife and all those things is such a missed piece in the Western
Yes.
world. It's, yeah, I think it's the biggest. Yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
agree. So, Sonhood, your book, tell me how were you continuing the work after you read that book, like be the responsible one and carry this message forward? Tell me about Sonhood.
Well, Sonhood is the name of the business. So the books that I have different names, but Sonhood is based on the best name I could come up with for what I want it to do. And Sonhood is with the S-O-N. The first book that I wrote 2 years ago was Raising Boys Who Become Remarkable Men. And that was looking at boys from birth to 8 years old. And this new one that will be launched in 2 weeks, I think, that one is called Will My Son Become a Good Man? And that book is based on and inspired by 10 men that I spoke with on the interviews. And with their permission, of course, I wrote about their interviews. Like the interviews are in the book. And then, like one of the things with education, especially I find, so I was early years mostly. And when I would try to talk to parents, or later when I was in leadership roles and talking to teachers, the most difficult thing was for them to understand what they were seeing. So when I see two little kids playing in the block corner, and I just sit there and I observe them, I can help you understand developmentally what they're doing, what it means when they're building this way, what things you can do to supplement that learning and go a bit deeper. There is so much more than two children playing in the block corner. And it's kind of the same way with these men's stories. They have stories that are very interesting stories, but when you look a little bit deeper and try to connect, so if I hear that story, what can I learn that's going to help me be better or more impactful at parenting my son? And their stories, and then they also, each one of them also wrote a letter, which is in the book, that would be to their younger self or to a future son that they had. And that also, these men were just phenomenal for being so honest and supporting this woman who was just on a mission to, share this information as best I could.
It's such an important thing, I think, now more than ever, with the rise of some men going down the wrong track, a different track that's really confronting for me as a mum as well. And social media is, the algorithm sends them what they see, and it's just layer on layer on layer on layer on layer. And I meet so many women, even on my podcast, who are a bit lost on how to have those conversations with guys. And I won't even just say boys, but that up to 30-year-old kind of guy that's being influenced so heavily, not necessarily in a positive way, by the likes of some interesting guys on social media. In your conversations that you're having with those guys that goes into the book, or those boys that go into the book, when you want to say boys or guys, what did you see stood out the most with their take on life at the moment versus all the influences around them? Did you notice anything? Because you want to be, it's about raising good men.
Yes. So I think it's really about understanding better about the differences between men and women. And so some of the men, like all of them, without fail, every single one of them talked about the negative impact education had had on them. Every single one. And that's another whole story and a pain point, really. But it's like these young men are wanting to talk. They are wanting to make sense of some things. They're wanting to be understood. And so even like one of the aha moments that I had, the first person that I interviewed for this series was my son. And so he at the time he was 32 years old. And I mean, we have spent our whole life having these beautiful but like deep conversations about masculinity and mental health and education and all of the topics that that I thought was really important that we talk about, and to give him information so that he didn't think there was something wrong with him. Maybe society doesn't have it quite figured out yet. But one of the things he said, which I thought I knew deeply, most things about his thinking, but he said one of the things he felt most men struggled with was this expectation to have their emotions flat. Not too big, not too small, not too happy, not too angry, but flat. And I didn't know that. And it was and that was the beginning of the interviews. So each one of the men was able to share his story, and each story had something that was like, wow, maybe if I had known that, maybe I would have addressed something a bit differently. Maybe I would have, like for my son, maybe I would have spent more time helping him develop and understand his own emotions, how to regulate them, but that they were still, all the emotions were good. Like maybe I could have done something, but I didn't know that one.
Interesting. So with that and what you found with the interviews with the boys, what thing worries you the most and what gives you the most hope?
What worries me the most, I think, is the young boys going through, different stages like adolescence and early adulthood, where they just feel the world is too much, and their mental health is taking a real toll. I worry mostly about those men because the suicide rate globally is horrifying. And one of the men that was that's in the book, he had tried twice to end his life, and that scares me. That it's so dark, that they feel so misunderstood, so lost, that is the solution that makes the most sense to them. On the flip side, the most optimistic I am is from talking to these men. It's like they could, in reflection, they could look at their childhood. They could look at, what was really important to them and what made it more challenging, and what they, hope the next group of males coming through maybe don't have to deal with some of those things. But they were so, when they had the space to talk and they knew that someone was listening that really cared and was really curious.
Yeah.
So that's what makes me excited, is that more and more people start talking, because once there's an awareness, once you get a little bit of knowledge, then you can take some action. But until you're aware, even that, these things are problems, that these things are challenges, then, the problem just perpetuates itself.
Yeah. And being a parent today, I'm sure our parents, said, oh, you have no idea what it was like. It's always, generation to generation, it's going to be different. But parenting today, I think, can feel incredibly overwhelming because we do have that added non-stop noise of social media, and everyone's a bloody expert. From your vantage point, what is the unique gift that an experienced mentor or an elder, there's such an important role, which is why I run this podcast and everything, is, for the elders, the wise women, the wise elder women, to be able to share with young mothers, to pass on that wisdom lived.
I think that's the greatest gift that I can be giving back to people. Like, I know I can have an impact with the young men. I know that. But it's the moms and the dads, really, mostly the moms, that I wish that I had have had somebody when I was young, when I was trying to do everything right, when I was living in cultures and countries where I didn't have family around and I was trying to do everything myself, plus have a career. I wish that I had someone who had lived long enough that they saw the trends and the bells and whistles from each time going through, and the pendulum that swings back and forth and back and forth. And at the end of it, could listen to me and say, relax, trust yourself, go back to the basics. Yes, maybe you will never know as much, technology as your child does. But if you've provided the sound emotional foundation and the strong relationship and the deep communication, they're going to work it out. You're going to work it out with them. But if you don't have those core things, then that's when you will get stuck in this new way of parenting where they're dealing with so much. There's so much influence. There's so much competition, really. And so much of giving the child over to everything else, because parents are doing everything they're doing because they think it's the best for their children. But when your child is overscheduled, when you're overscheduled, like, you miss some of the core things that someone who has been through it, just someone who's further down the road. And I don't think we have enough people at this age and stage that are stepping up. Oh. But it is so easy to start to isolate, start thinking, oh, nobody wants to hear what this old bird is saying. And that's wrong, but it is really easy to get there. That's why when I before I came on, I was going to tell you, but I have been binging on your interviews, your podcasts, because it was like, and I told my son about you too. And it's like, there's this woman who was really excited and talking about aging and in a positive way about what, especially we as women, can offer. And I just do not hear that message very loud or clear or very often.
In the Western world, it's not. It's which is why I'm just getting louder and louder. In Japan, are you seeing it? Well, yeah, I do a lot of work in Asia, teaching up there, and have for nearly 3 decades. And it's different. They listen to their elders, both male and female, and deep respect. And, I run a charity in Thailand where my boy's from, and I'll see, when he was being a right bloody meathead 16-year-old, where Matao, the matriarch in the village, when she spoke, he sat at her feet and he listened with deep respect, not the same shit in Australia, and the boys are just going, oh, piss off. Like, wildly different. So Asia, for instance, and I'm going to say Asia, non-Western cultures traditionally the elders are revered. Their wisdom is revered, and it's not in the West, which is why I'm on such a mission to bring women's stories, in my case, to the forefront, because we all have lived experience and wisdom. Doesn't matter what that woman comes from. And we can
Yeah,
help those younger mums and women coming behind us.
it's different in Japan, which is one of the reasons that I chose to retire here, which I didn't think I was going to. But in Canada, and I'm assuming it's the same in the States, I really thought if I went back there, my family would be thinking, I might be a burden on them, because maybe I didn't plan for retirement as well as, we should have, because I kept figuring I got time. Like I don't, but that's how I think about it in Canada, is that, as you age, you become more and more of a burden on your family, on society, on the healthcare system. Whereas here, there seems to be more of like not an overall thing, but in general, age is not something that is a burden. It's one of my relatives, she moved in with her mother, who's 90 something, and her daughter moved in with her, and now the second daughter has moved in. So there's 4 women, 3 generations.
Yeah.
And it's like, I had said once to the mom, I said, is it this hard for you, taking care of your mom, being the caregiver? And she just kind of looked at me like, shaking her head. It's like, well, she raised me. This is my job. This is my time to take care of her. And that never would happen in Canada. I don't think. I could be wrong. I've lived here longer than in Canada at this point, but it was a beautiful thing. It's like, I don't think she thinks of her mom as a burden.
No, and it's very much the same here. We stick oldies in oldies homes and, leave them be, versus the all of Asia, and I've had deep living there for, decades, working amongst it, and great friends, and watched the transitions with their families dying and all those things, and community's everything.
Yeah.
It's a unspoken, happy responsibility to, my mum washed my bum when I was a kid. I can and did look after her as she left this planet, and do the same for my dad now. Yeah. Yet others in my family don't do that and see that, and are not connected in that same way. Yeah.
Yeah, there's something wrong with our society where we don't have that same compassion and understanding for our elders. Like, I can't think of anything harder than having to have my son take care of me. Like, that I know that it's important and all that, but looking at it from the elder's point of view, but we don't think about that enough.
It's very humbling to get older.
Yes, it is.
And have to admit that we need help. Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah. So I love that you talk about that you're not aging, you're coming into your third act, or you're in your third act. I'm so with you on that. I have just as much fun or more fun than I ever had when I was younger. Have a deeper sense of care for myself, family, community, the planet. And at the same time, I don't give a shit about, as we say in Australia, about what other people think. And, what is it like being in your third act now, at nearly 72?
I'm much more, I'm highly sensitive. And Act 1 and Act 2. Act 1 was all about trying to learn who I was, the first 30 years, just trying to figure out, who the heck this person is inside. And then the second 30 really was about finding out what what I needed to do to fill my soul as far as career and then raising a family. In this act, it's like I can still keep all of the parts of me that I grew to understand in the other parts, but I don't have to let them rule me as much. I can still be very sensitive to everything, but I can also say, this is not about me. Let it go, which I couldn't have done that before. So there's a bit of freedom, I think, in this particular period of time to just kind of say, if this doesn't float your boat, get on a different boat. It's kind of.
I love that take on it. That's so cool. Yeah, I agree. I think it's an amazing time of our lives, and I'd love to see more women see that it is versus what society tells the Western world that it's meant to be such a bloody disaster and tough. It doesn't have to be. So if you had a young mum with a son, I want to go back to on the son thing at the moment, because I was just thinking as you were talking, she doesn't have that collective wisdom yet, of age. And if she's feeling overwhelmed and insecure around what she's doing, unsure, all those things, what would you want her to hear from you with that wisdom that, the boat, get off the boat? Like, we don't know that stuff when estrogen, the people-pleasing hormone, is keeping us packaged to behave in a certain way.
With the young moms, I think the first thing, is just to have an awareness, to have a bit of an understanding about how children were raised 50 years ago, 30 years ago, 10 years ago, and now. Because when you're in the thick of it, you think this is the way it's always been. This is what, everyone does this. This is why, we need to keep doing this. And sometimes when you can step back a little bit and think, okay, it's different. There are differences. And then once you become aware of that, then, you start, doing your due diligence kind of thing. Like, find the podcasts that are talking about the parenting style you're interested in. Join the groups of moms who, have kids the same age and going through that. Read the books. But in the end, the most important thing is trust yourself, because every mom has it inside her. She knows. Like, I don't know how many moms have said, well, I really don't think that, he should be, having a phone, but everyone else does. And I don't want him to feel left out. And so I'm going to give it to him. It's like, trust yourself. He shouldn't be having that phone. So that would be the biggest thing, is just don't just, jump on the bandwagon and go along with what everyone is doing because you think that's what you have to do. You don't.
I think that's epic advice. It is. And I also know, being the realistic naturopath I am, is that environment can be stronger than willpower. So how would you say to a woman, she's going no, and yet other relatives or people and all the peer pressure he's copying and everything, he keeps saying yes? What would you say to her? How does she stand in that no?
Well, it's that old saying that focus on what you can control. You can't control. I could not control my extended family when our little guy was young, and I had put a veto on guns. Like, no water guns, no toy guns. Like, it was my thing. I don't know if it was right or it was wrong, but my family gave me a hard time about that. And I can't control what they do, or I couldn't even control when we visited with them. But I could explain to my son, this is our family rule. This is the reason why. And I'm sorry if, you feel, that you're missing out on something, but it's not happening here. And I think that what that tells children is that you have boundaries and beliefs, and you are willing to stand up to any of the outside influences because you know deep in your soul it is the best thing for your child at this particular moment. And the other thing that I learned, which blew me away, our son was in daycare. I went back to work, had to go back to work soon after his birth. So I remember when he was, I think, maybe around 4. And I had to go in and talk to a teacher about something or whatever. And she said something to me about, well, the boys are getting a little bit rowdy. They're all playing this, and I don't remember, it was Pokemon or something, but this television program, or that was an animated thing, but, a little wild. And she said to me, well, your son is with that group. And I said, and he had always asked to watch this thing because everyone else did. And I said, no, we didn't watch TV. That's just one of those things. And the teacher did not believe that he did not watch it. And she said to me, he can sing all the songs. He knows all the characters' names. He's playing it. And I thought, this is beautiful. Any mom who is worried that their kid is going to be left out because you are making a stand on something, these kids are smart. So he listened to everyone else singing the songs. He fit in because that was his aim to, be with his peers. So you don't have to go against what you believe is the right thing.
I love that. Yeah. It's that's cool. What's it called? Spaced repetition. So every time he was hanging around with his mates, he picked up words, songs, bits and pieces that they were sharing, and he took them in his learnings, even though he wasn't watching the show. Yeah, huge.
Yeah.
So you strongly believe in the rights of the most vulnerable in our society, especially kids, and I'm right there with you. I just want them to be safe and loved. You believe strongly in the rights of the most vulnerable, especially kids.
Yeah.
So how did that taking a stand for boys especially become part of a larger fight for children's dignity? Because from what I've seen and what you do, me stalking you before you came on the show, it's like what sits behind it is dignity. It's not just kind of safety and stuff.
Because my whole career has been mostly with children who are 3, 4, and 5. And they I have learned more things from those children than any book that I've ever read. And one of the things that just, as adults and as society, we start to compartmentalize. This is the plight of boys and men. This is the plight of women. This is the plight of this religious group. This is the plight of everything is different issues. And we talk about things connected with gender, with culture, with religion, with everything. But it divides us all. And when you look at the 3, 4, and 5-year-olds, they're worried about how that kid is treating them. They're not looking at, well, is it a boy or is it a girl? They're looking, is this kid fun to be with? Is he a good, or she, are they good people? And so it's kind of like taking instead of segregating everything out, kind of putting it all in the lens of humanity. So if the situation is not the best for boys and men, well, create that awareness, provide the knowledge, advocate for them, and then look at, a humanity where that section is able to contribute the same as everyone else, rather than if this group is doing well, then this group is suffering. These, and I don't know if that is anywhere close to the answer to your
No, I think
question,
that's
but it's
actually
like,
a really good answer. I think you nailed it. Yeah.
oh, good.
No, you really did. It's way beyond. Kids get it. They don't
Yes.
give a shit. I remember when I came out as being gay when I was 17 and got kicked out of the army for it and all that kind of stuff. And I remember around the same time, my 8-year-old niece said, she's just trying to make sense of life. And she said to me, is Glenda, who was my partner at the time, your husband? I went, well, yeah, kind of, sort of. And she went, okay. No judgment, no nothing.
Let me tell you one, which
Amazing.
was,
They just don't have that shit in their head yet.
I was working in daycare in Vancouver, and there was a little boy, Byron, and he was maybe around 2. And his mom was white, and his biological father was black. And Byron's mom or the mom's father, so both white people, they were the ones who would pick Byron up at the end of the day, and he was one of the later kids. So there was this one day that it was Byron's biological father's grandfather, so a beautiful older black man.
Yep.
And he was coming to pick Byron up. So there's all these other 2 and 3-year-olds, going around. And as teachers, we were all kind of, I wonder what the kids are going to say when, a black man is coming to pick up this. I mean, he was a beautiful tan little boy. He wasn't, but Byron, he also had blonde hair. And curly, really curly. And when this grandfather came in, and we were all expecting to have some comments that we would need to talk about as far as race went, this little girl comes up and, kind of tugs at me and says, Kathy, that man is not Byron's grandfather. And I looked at her, just waiting for it. I thought, I'm ready, I'm prepared. And I said, well, what makes you think that? And she said, because he doesn't have blonde hair like Byron. And it was like, okay, she did not see the black skin. It was just, and
I love that.
It's kind of like we could learn so much if we listened to them more.
Yeah, I agree. The shit gets put in their head as they get older.
Exactly.
Yeah. Wow. So when you think about the world that your grandson is going to grow up in, what do you want most to have changed by the time he's a man? Like, what's the legacy you're actively building towards right now? Because what you're doing is totally the conversation he's going to grow into.
I strongly believe that society changes slowly. Education changes very slowly. So what I hope for him is just that he continues to have people surrounding him, like his parents, who are providing the emotional foundation where he can grow up and deal with what the world is going to throw at him. So that's where I think the emphasis needs to be, because more than anything else, the most powerful influence on any child's world is the world that he grows up in, and usually it's with his parents.
So to the wise women, women our age listening to this, what's one thing we can do to help advance that conversation? Not just for boys, for boys and girls, do you think?
I think we need to get more involved. I think that's what it is. Like I had mentioned, that we can become isolated because we kind of feel redundant and again, that's another thing that you see differently in Japan. So one of the services that they had here that young couples could apply for when they gave birth was for a period, I think, of 6 months. They could have an elder come into their home for 2 hours a week and cook meals, and for a minimal, amount of money, really minimal. And so this older woman comes in every week for 2 hours. She makes these beautiful meals, but that's not even the golden part of it. Like she, spends time with the little guy. She talks to my daughter-in-law. Like, it's like, that's what we need more of. We need more women who are in the world of these young families. Because if we're not there, they don't have the opportunity to benefit from us.
Oh, I would love to see that roll out in Australia. So
Yeah,
much, so much. I could cry thinking about that. That's gold. And that's a difference. Such a big difference between the West and here.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
West and Asia. Ah, Kathryne Imabayashi, with all the wisdom that you have today, what would you go back and say to yourself if you're like an 18-year-old? What would you whisper in your ear? Because you've seen so much, especially living between Canada and Japan and raising kids in different environments. What would you say to yourself?
I continuously work on myself to understand myself as a woman. So I would probably tell my 18-year-old self, you're good enough, just as you are. And these challenges that you are feeling and will continue to feel because you feel different are going to end up being your superpower. So you're good enough.
I love that. That's a great note to end on. How can people find you? What is your best place? Like on socials, Facebook, Instagram, that kind of stuff, LinkedIn? Tell us the best place for people to find you.
I'm active every place, but the best place is through the website, Sonhood, S-O-N, coaching.com. But I put things on Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn. And for the last, I don't know if it's 6 months or not, I'm putting more energy and effort into Substack. So writing more things and just sharing my viewpoints about, raising boys.
I love it. I love it. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on. It's such an important topic. It's in the Western world, yeah, guys are misunderstood. All my closest friends are men. It's yeah, it's interesting. Special souls.
Mm-hmm.
And the world needs both. Yes, I want women to stand their
Exactly.
ground and be fucking epic, and I want the world to be, yeah, more balanced. I want men and women as adults, to be able to work across the board. I see the patriarchal system doesn't support men. So it's so important to bring all this back into balance.
I read a poem, which I often use when I'm doing workshops. And the image of it, it's a beautiful thing, but the image of it and the message of it is that humanity is like this beautiful, large bird. And on one side is the male wing, and on the other side is the female wing. And until we learn how to fly together, humanity doesn't reach its peak. I thought that was quite beautiful.
I think that's amazing. I think that's a perfect way to end. What a great visual.
Yeah.
Yeah, we need both. Thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you today.
Well, thank you. I have been looking forward to this with great excitement. So thank you. It was such a pleasure to be here.
Well, wherever you're listening to this, whether you're on YouTube or across any of the podcast platforms, we will absolutely put the links to Kathryne so that you can track her down and follow her. Great wisdom to be shared. Thank you.